Hi everyone, welcome to Social Aloe Ministries, where we're committed to glorifying God and exposing the devil. In today's expose, I want to cover a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and it's about spiritual oppression within the church. In John 8:36, Jesus let us know that he came to set us free, and whosoever he sets free is free indeed. In Luke 4:18 through 19, I'll read the following words from Jesus, which is a fulfillment of a prophecy in Isaiah 61. And it states, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord." Jesus died to set us free, and especially free from sin. Sadly, there are people who seek that freedom, end up getting attached to a ministry, and end up becoming a prisoner of another kind. And I'll share an example with you from Jeremiah chapter 27. The Lord sent the prophet Jeremiah to prophesy while wearing a wooden yoke. And the wooden yoke was symbolic of something. And I'm going to show you how a false prophet opposed Jeremiah to make it look like he was liberating people, but instead he ended up putting them in bondage. And it's a symbol of what sometimes happens in some churches today. In Jeremiah 27:9 through 11, when Jeremiah prophesied while wearing a yoke, this is what he said, or this is a part of what he said. "Therefore, hearken not ye to your prophets, nor to your diviners, nor to your dreamers, nor to your enchanters, nor to your sorcerers, which speak unto you, saying, Ye shall not serve the king of Babylon. For they prophesy a lie unto you, to remove you far from your land." And I'll pause. When people prophesy a lie to you, in this case it's removing them far from a land. When people prophesy a lie to you in today's day, what they're also doing is removing you from the Lord. And it's one of those things to look out for. Whenever you attach yourself to a ministry, how does that ministry affect your relationship with the Lord? It should be improving your relationship with the Lord. It should be drawing you closer to God. And I'll continue. So, "For they prophesy a lie unto you, to remove you far from your land, and that I should drive you out, and ye should perish." And this is Jeremiah speaking on behalf of the Lord, by the way. "But the nations that bring their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, and serve him, those will I let remain still in their land, saith the Lord. And they shall till it, and dwell therein." So the prophet Jeremiah had the wooden yoke, delivered the prophecy from the Lord, and he also added the caveat about not listening to other prophets who have other things to say. Yet, in Jeremiah 28, and I'll read from 10 through 17. After the prophet Jeremiah did that, "Then Hananiah the prophet took off the yoke from the prophet Jeremiah's neck and brake it. And Hananiah spake in the presence of all people, saying, Thus saith the Lord." Let me pause for a second. If you remember back in Jeremiah 27, Jeremiah gave a message from the Lord. And he said, do not basically listen to anyone who has a message contrary to this. But here it is, you have someone else contradicting those words by what he's about to say. "Thus saith the Lord, even so will I break the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, from the neck of all nations within the space of 2 full years. And the prophet Jeremiah went his way. Then the word of the Lord came unto Jeremiah the prophet. After that, Hananiah the prophet had broken the yoke off the neck of the prophet Jeremiah, saying, Go and tell Hananiah, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Thou hast broken the yokes of wood, but thou shalt make for them yokes of iron. And I'll pause here for a second. Jeremiah gave a word while wearing the wooden yokes as a sign of what was to come if they didn't submit to the king of Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar. Hananiah, a false prophet, had something else to say. He broke the wooden yoke as a symbol, but because he broke that yoke, the Lord imposed an even stiffer judgment. So it went from wooden yoke to metal yoke. And again, that is symbolic of what happens in churches sometimes, where a person goes to a church and rather than gaining the liberty that Jesus died for them to have, they end up gaining another form of captivity in the form of spiritual oppression. And I'll continue reading. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I have put a yoke of iron upon the neck of all these nations, that they may serve Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. And they shall serve him, and I have given him the beast of the field also. Then said the prophet Jeremiah unto Hananiah, the prophet. By the way, you know it says Hananiah the prophet. Nowadays, just because someone has a title doesn't mean they truly have that title or that they have the character that goes with that title. In addition, just because a person claims to be something and they're making declarations in the name of the Lord, it does not mean that the Lord sent them. I'll continue. Hear now, Hananiah, the Lord hath not sent thee, but thou makest the people to trust a lie. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will cast thee off the face of the earth. This year thou shalt die, because thou hast taught rebellion against the Lord. And I'll pause there for a second. It is very important that when you go to a church or a ministry, it could be via teleconference or some form of VTC, that your obedience is first and foremost to God and not a person. And it continues. So Hananiah the prophet died the same year in the 7th month. That's one of those things. When the Lord speaks, whosoever he speaks through, those things will come to pass. Now, I mentioned about the spiritual oppression that is symbolic of. And I'll turn to Matthew 23, and I shall read verses 1 through 15. And these are the words of Jesus. Then spake Jesus to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, The scribes and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore, whatsoever they bid you to observe, that observe and do. But do not ye after their works, for they say and do not. For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to the born, and lay them on men's shoulders. But they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do for them to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries and enlarge the borders of their garments, and love the uppermost rooms at feast, and the chief seats in the synagogues, and greetings in the market, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But be not ye called Rabbi, for one is your master, even Christ, and all ye are brethren. I'll pause here for a second. In some cases, ministers will do things and it is for your protection. In other cases, they're doing things for their own exaltation. They're doing things to control you. Where Jesus said, "You're all brethren." So rather than being exalted, in a sense, we're on the same level. Even though those ministers may have more knowledge about the Bible than you do, but you still have a responsibility to learn for yourselves and to also ensure that what you're being taught is of and from God. And I'll continue. And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father, which is in heaven. Neither be ye called master, for one is your master, even Christ. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whatsoever shall be exalted, and whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased. And he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. That is very serious coming from the Lord. He's saying that there are many people out there who are ministers who will not make it into heaven. And one of the things they're doing is stopping you from going in. It continues, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye devour widows' houses, and for pretense make long prayer. Therefore ye shall receive the greater damnation. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye compass sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he is made, ye make him twofold more a child of hell than yourselves. I'll read the 15th verse again, because it is very important as far as this message is concerned. Seeking a convert, but then putting that person in bondage. Jesus said, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye compass sea and land to make one proselyte, convert, and when he is made, ye make him twofold more a child of hell than yourselves. The scribes and Pharisees were holy men, yet Jesus was calling them children of hell. That still goes on today. In some cases, you may be in a ministry where maybe at first you're excited to go. Then it turned into you have to be in church every time the doors are open. That is a form of bondage. Or once you start attending that church, you are not allowed to go to another church. In some cases, it is for your protection, but in other cases, it is actually a form of insecurity. Why? Because if you go to another ministry, you may actually find out that you're learning more than you're learning in the church that you're in. And in some cases, it's financial, because when people go to a ministry, they tend to do tithes and offering. If they leave that ministry, they take their money with them. So that minister may not always have your best interest at heart. So again, be very careful whenever you become a part of a ministry and how that ministry affects your relationship with the Lord. If it draws you closer to the Lord, that is a good sign. If you literally feel like you have that yoke around your neck, and in some cases you may have entered into a church feeling like you had a wooden yoke, but the more you start attending a church, it feels like that yoke was taken off, but then you have a metal yoke. And I'll continue in Matthew 15, 7 through 9, where Jesus said, Ye hypocrites, well did Esaias prophesy of you, saying, The people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honoureth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. A part of spiritual oppression is by using things from the Bible to keep people in bondage. And sometimes what you may notice in churches is that things that are practiced are not biblical. So people start doing things where they're human rules, but they're truly not honoring God. In some cases, for example, praise and worship music is not really praising and worshiping God. So just be very careful whenever you get involved with a ministry, that ministry is drawing you closer to the Lord. That shepherd should be feeding you. And not just, for example, in a sense, hors d'oeuvres. That person should be feeding you solid scriptural food, should be giving you a hunger for Christ. You have to have that desire in your heart where you want to seek the Lord for yourself. And in a sense, going to church is just confirmation and to help you strengthen your belief. And not that you're solely relying on one person or a ministry to draw you closer to the Lord. Because in a lot of cases, you're going to end up in spiritual bondage. A lot of people go to churches and their relationship with the Lord basically dies. You voluntarily walked into a church, made a phone call, get involved with a VTC. You can always leave if you are not being fed and if your relationship with the Lord is being negatively affected. God bless you.